In Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Jigglypuff is known to many as a bad character at worst and a low-threat nuisance at best, despite improving results from players like Canon Red, Base Mage, and HBox and some fairly generous buffs in the 6.0 update. However, Jigglypuff players are quietly improving the character with some underutilized tech known as Pivot Landing. Pivot Landing is a simple movement tech that gives Jigglypuff dozens more options, and while most are situational, all have their uses, and it is ultimately the style of the player that determines the mileage they'll receive while applying them. Pivot Landing is simple but a little tricky. Really, it's just jumping at any height, fast falling, and doing a quarter circle in the opposite direction that you're facing. This should give you a decent horizontal slide on the ground. It can be used effectively from a short hop or full hop. Really, getting it down is all about timing the quarter circle when you're near the ground so that you get the longest possible boost. This can change how Puff can play neutral and how she reacts to certain situations, and gives her better mobility all around. It allows Puff's combos to reach greater heights as well, giving her new kill options and improving the consistency of her existing combos. In this guide, I'll be going over every use that I've found for Pivot Landing. I'll be separating this guide into 4 parts: neutral and movement, mix-ups, edge guarding / advantage state, and combos. Timestamps to each segment will be in the description. Weaving back and forth in neutral allows Puff to play at an overall quicker speed, giving her quicker access to her grounded options while in the air. When paired with pivot shield and specific platform movement, your opponent is constantly threatened by a variety of burst options. Pivot shield is one of the best tools Puff gets access to with this tech. It lets you approach your opponent quickly and protect yourself with shield immediately after, giving you access to grab and your aerials. This is especially useful because it helps compensate for Puff's lack of range. You can approach with pivot after your opponent presents an opening for a faster punish. You can also pivot off of a platform and land with an aerial, although it's rather tricky. Pivot landing also helps you throw out aerials, as it allows a faster retreat after whiffing. This is especially useful with down air and up air, since Puff can get excellent punishes out of those options. Pivot Tomahawk is one of the easiest and best applications of pivot landing, and can be added to your gameplay with very little practice. It's almost always unexpected and gives you not only easily the best tomahawk grab in the game, but instant access to your forward throw. It's best used when your opponent is waiting out an obvious option or when they're in shield at a distance. To pivot with an aerial, you don't need to fast fall. You'll still get the full boost and turnaround just by holding the opposite direction immediately after a short hop aerial. Pivot Tomahawk can also be done after any aerial, giving you a wider array of unexpected maneuvers to tomahawk after. You can mix up your movement and your opponent and keep your opponents on edge. Pivot Landing also gives a slight boost to Pound. It's by no means as good as a mix-up, but it helps your approach with Pound and can prove useful. In the neutral and movement section, we talked about pivoting after using short hop aerials. However, this is especially useful with back air into pivot. Using a back air and pivoting immediately after will give Puff another excellent mix-up and keeps your movement even more unpredictable. It's extremely fast, and to do this, simply do a back air at any height and pivot in the direction you were originally facing. You can use this for spacing, approach, or just some snappy movement for the price of a stale back air. Pivot Landing gives Puff new and safer ways to pressure foes on platforms. You can use your movement to be creative with how you attack them. Speaking of snappy movement, there's some advanced pivoting movement that you can do off of platforms in tandem with other moves, jumps, aerials, and landing. It lets you be really creative with your movement, especially on stages like Battlefield. Also, it just looks dope. Pivot landing when your opponent is in disadvantage keeps your opponent guessing your next move. As long as you're not predictable with it, you can quickly react and punish to a bad option while you're keeping them stuck. Here, Diddy Kong thinks that he's safe after some empty pivots and pulls a banana. Puff quickly reacts to keep him in disadvantage. Pivot landing at the ledge can help you bait out more options or ledge get-ups with pivot shield and lets you react with a nair. After sending your opponent off stage from afar, pivot landing can help you get in a better position to edge guard more quickly and effectively. Now we get to the fun part, Puff's new combos and strings. I really want to stress here that by far the most applicable thing pivoting adds to Puff's combo game is the ability to switch directions with dare loops, and maybe pivot rest. Everything else here is a mix-up or a response to a specific scenario, and should not be the center of Puff's combo game. But mastering these combos will give you an insane reward when these scenarios do occur, and you can steal some ridiculously early stocks. That said, Puff is given some new follow-ups with pivoting, and for the most part they're centered around two core concepts: pivot down air and pivot rest. Pivot down air lets you follow up with another down air even if the opponent was sent behind you because of Puff's extremely inconsistent hitbox, making combos with multiple down airs more consistent, and pivoting after a dare can give you many new follow-ups. Pivot rest is more straightforward. You can confirm a kill by getting the backwards hit of dare by pivot landing and using your movement boost to land a rest. This is true even with DI. Platforms also give pivot combos a chance to shine, with dare comboing into every aerial after sliding off a platform, and comboing into some of them on the ground. On many characters, you can also pivot land into an up tilt after a dare, which works especially well on and below platforms. Here are a few intermediate combos Puff gets access to with this tech. Puff can finish combos after a pivot dare in any way that she normally would. Despite not always being true on the ground, this is one of the best setups pivoting brings, and it works especially well on platforms or on heavies. Even when pound isn't true, it'll usually hit or put your opponent in a very bad spot. Against DI out, you can fair after pound for more consistent damage. If pound rest isn't consistent enough, you can follow up off of pound with whatever you'd like. Puff has excellent platform setups on her own, and pivoting after an aerial after dare will give you even more tech chase and jab lock scenarios like this. Pivoting a down air into another down air and landing on the top platform of Battlefield can give you high damage combos like this one. Here are some of the more difficult, niche combos that Puff gets access to. This combo seems fairly straightforward, and it is, but the chances of landing multiple consecutive down airs against SDI that send backwards, keeping the combo going throughout, and finishing with the pivot rest at a kill percent are extremely slim. Jigglypuff has a very tight window to pivot land up tilt after a down air. While this up tilt can lead to lengthy combos, she needs the entire distance of a pivot to land this. On certain characters, the combo will require a turnaround up tilt, or even only combo with Sour Spot up tilt, but it seems to be consistent on the majority of the cast. While not too practical, this combo Puff has lets her dish out over 50% damage from a pivot up tilt. Just do a down air after hitting the up tilt and continue the combo from there. This Sing setup that Puff gets, while not consistently lethal, is a crazy way for her to get tons of damage in at low percents. The craziest combo that Puff gets access to with this tech is a kill setup that starts working on midweights around 20% and even earlier on platforms. Its practicality varies from character to character, but it works on most of the cast even with good DI. This combo is relatively low risk too, since up tilt is low committal and up tilt rest is true at early percents. That's all I have for the ultimate pivot landing guide. A lot has happened since production of this video began those 6 months ago, and I want to apologize to the Puff community for the delay. I hope it wasn't too disappointing. Regardless, I hope this helps any current or aspiring Puff mains, or just shows other players what she's capable of and teaches them about the character. I want to give a very special thanks to Avex, Basemage, and all of the Puffs on Twitter for helping me out so much during the early stages of this video's development. Thank you so much for watching.